Fort Cochin is the first place Vasco da Gama set foot in India. In this video, I'm sailing the waters that Vasco da Gama himself may have sailed. And I'm in a place called Kochi. It's in the southern part of India, as you can see in the map on your screen now. The first European sailor who ever reached the Indian shores may have sailed these waters, and his name was Vasco da Gama. I am in Kochi, an archipelago of islands in southern India, and this is where Vasco da Gama first set his foot. While I let you in on the history of this place and how significant that was, it's as important as Columbus discovering America, probably a little more. I'll tell you how that is in a few seconds. But first, let's look at the cruise ships on the way. Alright, there is a Celebrity Constellation cruise ship here which set sail from Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates all the way to India. It first comes to this place, Kochi, and then goes to Goa and finally to Bombay or Mumbai. I wonder what it would have felt like in the 14th century when the Portuguese sailor and his crew set sail to India, not knowing how to get here, and he was helped by a Gujarati trader off the coast of Africa who helped him get here to the Malabar coast. I mean, he first got here not far from where I am and probably sailed the same through the same islands here in Kochi. And from here, he goes up north to Goa. In fact, Vasco da Gama's grave was here in India for 15 years in a place called the St. Francis Church in the island of Fort Cochin. His journey was so profound that it opened up the trade routes, and forever it has changed the history of Europe as well as Asia, and particularly that of India. His sea route opened the first possibility of making huge profits out of the spice trade. And it was so profitable that the kings and queens of many European countries, much smaller than India itself, and they had funded these adventurers hoping to find a land route and cut the middlemen off the trade in spices. In fact, Vasco da Gama's first trip to India was so profitable, it's said to have paid itself 60 times over. So whatever was invested in that journey made 60 times profits purely out of spice trade. It's also said that a bag of nutmegs could buy a house in Amsterdam in those days. So you could imagine how lucrative that trade was and how he felt, the pressure he must have felt before he set foot on the Indian soil. Vasco da Gama landed here in the 14th century, and that opened up the route to India. And I am walking the bylanes of Fort Cochin, not far from where he landed. Right? It's incredibly beautiful. Alright, so there is a basilica, a cathedral, and these are like bars and hotels. And of course you have a lot of tuk-tuks. I'm walking up to a spice shop to buy some spices. I learned about a particular spice. It's called Pati Mugam, right? And that means it's some sort of a rosewood bark shavings, which is boiled and it's drunk with every meal. Okay. So these spices brought the Europeans all the way to India. It inspired royals to fund ships, and Vasco da Gama came here in the 14th century looking for these spices. You wouldn't believe it, but if I told you that these spices, a bag of nutmeg could buy a house in Europe. So that was the trade. So you can imagine how lucrative that would have been
that inspired generations of people coming all the way from Portugal to India. And the first sea route to India was found by Vasco da Gama, and Vasco da Gama landed not far from somewhere here. And this is one of those typical spice stores. If this was 14th century, this would have been worth a Fort Knox or similar. Okay, so that's the history of this place. This is Fort Cochin. Join me as I go to the next destination, which is the Hill Palace, which is the local Maharaja's palace, now converted to a museum. So I'm going to show you what's inside and walk around, have some food. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks so much. Keep watching.